All right, my rigging guru, Jimmie. We're going to start off here at the very bow.
We got this beautiful new park and furler up here.
Right.
And it's going to be a fairly simple operation. A lot of the stuff that we need to talk about with using it is actually done back there.
Okay. But let's talk about just spinning the sail on.
Yeah.
And we got 3 halyards forward here. Which one would you use?
It's
the blue one normally, or this is marked as the general on the clutch.
It's the red and white one, exactly.
Okay.
So we try to mark all the clutches to make it foolproof for you. But the biggest way to tell is you look up.
Right.
And if you look up, you can see that this halyard comes right out of the front of the mast, just below the general furler.
Correct.
Below the headstay.
Correct.
That's your indicator that that's the halyard.
All right.
It also goes through a special device up there,
all right,
which helps this prevent the halyard from wrapping around. So because it's this furler, so
right,
it's a spinny thing, you know, what you have to do is you have to make the halyard independent from the spinning action of the furler, so
right,
it doesn't want to wrap around. And for that, you use this thing called a swivel. You can see that there's a shackle here,
right,
and there's a shackle missing here, but that's actually the shackle that moves with the halyard.
Okay, so the halyard shackles directly through,
yep,
this, all right, and then the head of the sail is bent to that, right?
That's right.
Okay. And then the foil, you got 2 foils.
2 grooves, but you're only going to ever use one.
One foil, 2 grooves.
There's the cute little stings you can do with the second groove, but they're not going to be very important. Like some people like to run another sail up there when the sails are out, so they can run wing on wing, as they call it.
Right.
Unnecessary. You can run wing on wing with your mainsail out to one side,
right, and
your headsail out to the other side using that whisker pole, which we're going to talk about in a minute.
Okay, does it matter which of the 2 grooves in the foil that you use?
No, you can use either one.
All right. Okay, and then the tack, right, right there?
Yep.
Okay, sounds pretty simple.
Yep.
Okay, what about the 2 other kind of spinnaker halyards here? What's the recommended way to stow them?
You have this. I say before you go sailing.
Right.
One of the things I always like to do is spinnaker halyard's probably not going to get a lot of use, right? But a lot of people are like, oh, I don't fly a spinnaker. The thing to remember with a spinnaker halyard is it's just called a spinnaker halyard. The halyards have their names because of their positions at the top of the mast.
Okay.
Regardless of whether you fly a jib or a spinnaker or you don't fly any sails at all, it doesn't really matter.
It's just
it's still a spinnaker halyard and it's still a jib halyard.
Right, okay.
So the spinnaker halyard we make about 10 feet longer than all the other halyards. And the reason for that is so that it also works as a really great utilitarian halyard. To kind of be lifting out groceries from the dinghy, lifting the dinghy up to the side of the boat, helping hoist the motor, even a man overboard should that be a thing.
Okay.
It goes to a winch. It goes all the way to the top of the mast.
Correct.
And the reason it's such a good utility halyard is because it is above everything else at the top of the mast, and it hangs from a free hanging block up there,
right,
which kind of allows it to articulate to all points of the boat without it being fouled around anything.
Right.
So it's also a great halyard. If you lose the jib halyard up the mast, you can use this in a bind.
Even though it's not as free at the top.
You don't want to furl with it.
Okay.
But you can conventionally douse and raise the sail if you're in a bind. You got a sail back. You're like, we need the sail. We don't have a halyard. What do we do? Use this. You can even use this as a spare main halyard.
We're looking at the spinnaker halyard up at the block at the head.
See that block I'm flipping around up there?
Yeah.
Getting ready to sail, you want to take the spinnaker halyard, whip it out around the prow, just like this.
All right.
Bring it back to the back of the mast. And you can flip it off the base of the mast, maybe it's bang, little eye, looks like a good place. Then I come over here and pull the slack. I picked the starboard side because that's the starboard crane that spinnaker halyard's rigged on your boat. You could have picked the port crane or the starboard crane. We ended up picking the starboard. Right? And then you just pull the slack up and cleat it. Now you don't even have to go around the winch. You want to leave the winch open for other business and just cleat it off down here. It don't need to be super tight, but it's just out of the way. And if you look the way it's kind of raked around the shroud up there, it's really out of the way of the furling gear. So none of that spinning action can get that halyard involved in it ever.
Okay. Did you go around just the
Upper shroud.
Just the upper shroud? I got you there. Okay.
Around the upper shroud. I mean, I went around the aft lower too. But it don't matter. I could have went inside here.
All right, just so long as you get it around the upper.
Let's get it around the upper so that's kind of pulled away from the front of the mast. You know what I mean?
Yep. Okay, so
that's why it's important to use the right halyard for furling.
Right.
You can always use the spare, aka spinnaker,
right,
for anything. But if you're going to go into that mode, be like, hey, Jimmy says we got to conventionally
look where it
hoist the
is.
bells.
Okay, right.
You know?
Okay, now let's look at the Genoa halyard for the furling head sail, which is here, right?
Yep.
And I'm sort of not used to having the main halyard and the head sail halyard on the same side, the same winch. So I got to get used to that. And also, I haven't had clutches before. So one ignorant question I've got is, will that clutch hold it, or
yeah,
do I need to cleat it off as well?
No, the clutch will hold it. The big thing you got to remember with these clutches, they use these teeth to bite down.
Okay.
And they work very well. So as I clutch this down, I won't close it all the way so you can kind of see it. But as I clutch that down, see how it pulls down on it and it sucks it down tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
The more it tries to back out, the tighter the grip gets on it. You know?
Okay. So like a rock climbing device.
It's very much like an ascending device on a rock
okay.
climber. Yeah. So the big thing to remember with these is these little teeth. If you leave the line locked on here statically for multiple years, it sure is going to wear the shit out of that line right there.
Okay.
So this is why I was making that point earlier about taking that spinnaker halyard off when you're done sailing and taking it back out to the bow.
Right.
If that's the only time you move that halyard, whether it's that one day of sailing,
right,
and it's the only time in his whole life you're ever going to touch it, you're actually not going to use it for anything else, that's a good thing. You know what I mean?
For the line itself.
For the line itself.
Okay.
Because what'll happen is you'll just forget that it's there, number one. That's how it gets fouled. Number two is it's going to just sit in the same spot its whole life, worry and break.
Right.
Then you've got a halyard lost in the mast. That's a really expensive thing, because now you got to pay 2 riggers to try to climb up and down the mast to fish in the halyard again. Also reminds you have the damn thing, so in case something
right,
happens,
so
you're like, oh man, there's that halyard.
Right.
Jimmy always told me to go put back out in the bow, and I don't know why I was doing it for all this years.
It's like anything, tying a knot over and over again.
Exactly, like untie the knot once in a while.
Right, yeah.
Before you know it, you have a stopper knot that's been in there for 15 years, and this thing is a crusty thing that you'll never get undone. You know what I mean?
Okay, so what about the head sail? Because once the roller furling's up, I'm going to leave it up for weeks and maybe months.
Exactly. So you just put it, free up this winch, take the main halyard off,
right,
free up this winch, and then tension it. The tensioning thing with how much tension, how little tension, because I know that's a question.
Right.
Pull it up. You should be able to pull most of it up by hand, at least 3/4, maybe 2/3 of the way. Then the last little bit, you put it on the winch and you pull it up the rest of the way with the winch. It should never be a tough thing. It should still go up really easy. If it is, that means you're doing something wrong. Okay. Something's pinched.
Something's snagged. Do you think it's going to be a 2-person job? Somebody's got to feed it in, or can I just will it feed itself? We don't know.
There is. It should even be down below. There is a pre-feeder. If there isn't one down below, they're very cheap things.
Okay.
And you just, that one time a year that you put the sail on, you lash it. We'll come back to here. Okay. You lash it onto here, nice and tight, and you put the sail through this, and it's like a set of jaws. Put the bolt rope up through there.
Right.
And then that kind of gives it a lead to come up into the feeder.
Okay.
Pre-feeder, feeder.
Right.
Those are the 2 names you're looking for. Feeder you have, that comes with the furler. Right. Pre-feeder is something that you can set up to make it a one-man situation.
And so, I mean, when it was hanked on, it was just straight up, but it should be something similar to that. It shouldn't be a struggle.
It'll feel like that. It won't feel as free as hang on because it's a bolt rope that's sliding in. So as I add more rope into the groove, it gets a little bit heavier and heavier. But it should be an exceptionally free-feeling thing. It can feel pinched. It does so very easily and very commonly. That is because the bolt rope got this way on it, and you start now grabbing, dragging the bolt rope. Bolt rope's no longer in the groove.
Okay.
That's why I say stop if you're feeling real shitty up there.
Pull it back down.
And say, hey, are we in the groove all the way up? Because you might be actually trying to whore out the groove with the bolt rope being not in the groove anymore. Pull it back down, get it back in, and then set it back up.
Okay, to the Genoa halyard.
So to finish up the Genoa halyard lesson, you get the sail up. It went up pretty well. You got it 2/3, 3/4 away. Now you put turns on, and you go to cranking the sail up the rest of the way. You want to be able to get it up so that you'll see the luff is taut. And and you get it to the point where it's taut, then give it bam, bam, like a little bit of tension. You don't need to go bing, bang, 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 bang. You don't need to do that. That's too tight. But you also don't want the luff sagging.
Right, you just
like
want the luff to be tight without...
Snugged up.
Okay.
And you'll see while sailing too, things will stretch and settle, especially with your new boat or your new setup.
Just tighten it up a little.
Come back over here and re-snug things.
Right.
But you never need to go mental.
Okay.
But you also don't want to be too soft. I know this sounds really crazy, but you want to be just right. So, I mean, you think about the halyard swivel, right? It's a set of bearings there. So we can make it uber tight and bind things up, or we can make it so loose that the halyard's hanging out at the top of the mast trying to wrap around the furling system.
Right.
So we want to take it up, snug it up, then once it's snugged up, close the clutch. And you'll see as you back it off the winch, the rope will move ever so slightly as it's biting down onto that cam.
Okay, so it lose a little half an inch or something on the...
You might.
Okay.
There are some techniques to using these clutches. I don't want to get too crazy on you.
Yeah.
But if you burp the handle, not fully open releases.
Okay.
But so, let me see if I can show you. So...
Well, when I'm tightening it down, when I'm hoisting the sail, do I keep it all the way open or just half open?
You can close it all the way, so it'll run one way.
Okay. So just leave it down.
It'll run. See how it pushes the cam open?
Yeah.
And then as it bites the other way, it pulls.
Okay.
It locks it. Now, you see though, I lose like this much.
Right.
So in the world of, well, for me, I'm a little anal. I'm like, I don't want to lose any.
Right.
So, if you do the closed version, it kicks the cam open. And as it goes back in, I lose a little, but before I actually unload the winch, so before the rope can actually start moving this way, I open the handle partially. You see how I push the cam down?
Do that again.
Just right. Boop.
Okay.
It pushes the cam down just slightly. It helps bite it sooner. It helps
okay.
bite down on the rope sooner. So
you call that burping it?
Not all the way open.
Because then it's slack.
That's open, right? But just burp it open.
Right.
And now, as I pull it, it engages down quicker.
So then just tighten it that little more and then clamp it off.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
I'll try to remember that.
It's a little technique. You can even stick your finger in there. There's no danger. You can stick your finger in there, like have it open partially, stick your finger in there, and then that thing really won't move. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But there's always a little bit of movement between going from the winch load to here. It's just the nature of it. Okay. Another way is you can over tighten this a hair because you know it's going to go back a little bit.
Right.
That's another way to think of it.
Okay.
It takes a little feel. You know?
All right.
But anyway, so yes, you can pull on it with the clutch closed. Obviously, with it open, it's really easy to pull on it, but it's made to go one way.
All right.
So get the sail up, good tension. Then take the
off
thing
the winch and cleat it.
Now you can take your coil when you're done.
You don't even cleat it. You don't even cleat it off on the regular horn cleat. You just leave it on the clutch.
You can, but that horn cleat you're going to need for your main halyard.
Okay.
Again, this setup here, I've set things up as simple as possible for you to add things to it. Okay. So you can call Jay from Island Rigging or even Skip, whoever you like, and say, hey, I could really use another cleat here. Or the winch handle boot, you know, that would be a nice addition.
Right.
It will get additions over time. For me, it's always like, I got to start off with the basics, keep it simple, keep it functional. And that makes it also a safer thing, you know what I mean? Because if I start putting too much stuff all over your boat, you're not going to know. Right. You know, we're going to run out of battery.
It's already complicated. You're right. And I need to save some battery.
So, what I like to do when I'm done after I'm clutched off is that you're probably not going to touch the thing after you got it up once. Maybe you retension it once. I take the coil and I hang it just above the clutch. Kind of gets it out of the way of everybody.
What if you got to get it off quickly?
This will actually come off pretty quick.
Okay, I see you got like a slip knot.
I got a little slip knot. It's all about, you know, at some point you get into your seaman like knowledge. But this is a nice way to kind of keep this thing cleaned up.
Right.
Here's a big point I want to make real quick about self-tailing winches, period.
Okay.
Even those, any self-tailing winch forever. A lot of people never cover this. So you put a couple wraps on, you pull your sail, do 1 wrap, 2 wraps, 3 wraps. Before you go to the self-tailer, just like your buddy was holding the tail for you in the old days before we had self-tailers, if I handed that to you with 1 wrap and we had the sail 3/4 way up, you'd be like, man, give me another wrap. It's not even, it's just spinning, right? The winch is spinning, but the rope's not moving. And then you give your buddy another wrap and all of a sudden the rope starts moving again.
Right.
If you go to the self-tailer from here, you're putting too much load on this.
Right.
You're going to bend the lifting arm, and the line's probably not going to do much. You're just going to be sitting here.
You got to have enough
you don't
wraps
even
on
notice
it.
that you're not doing anything.
Okay.
Always, before you go to the self-tailer, regardless of how many wraps you started with, fill the drum with wraps. The line diameter versus the drum size will dictate how many wraps, so there isn't a magic number, but fill it before you go to the tailor. That way, the tailor's not working so hard. The drum's doing the work, which is what it's made to do. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
That's like the super pro bonus tip right there.
Okay, so Jimmie swapped out the main topping lift, which is now the main halyard black line, and we put the old main halyard, which is the white and blue. Now it's the main boom topping lift, and it just cleats off on the one cleat at the bottom at the starboard side.
Cleats back to the mast, and the other one cleats out to the shroud. This can be a flag halyard. It can also be the radar rig. That's why it's rigged through 2 blocks up at the top.
Okay.
So those Echo radar reflector balls, they tend to be the best ones from testing of reflectivity, which is a very controversial thing. There's a whole blog on my website about it. Very boring material if you're having trouble sleeping. You can read all about it. But anyway, so you rig the ball in what they call the catch rain position, which basically puts the little fins in a position where they catch rain. And the angles of the fins seem to be the most reflective that way. There's also the non-catch rain position where the fin is like this. The rain kind of just pours off the side. It doesn't work as well. So they actually make a rig to make it this way. Whatever. Hook it up however you want. But this thing is so that this goes to the top of the ball, this goes to the bottom of the ball. And then you take a little piece of line and you lash it to the upper shroud. And you pull the ball outboard this way. And as you pull the ball up to the top,
It pulls it over to the lower shroud.
the reason the cleat is here on the mast is because now I pull the ball away, tensioning that little line that's holding onto the upper shroud,
Right.
and it keeps it locked in there so it doesn't spin around on you all night, which is everyone else is doing that. I promise you. So that's why that cleat's here.
Okay.
And the other reason that we have a second eye strap up there is obviously if I had this going through one block, the line would be tangling all around the ball.
Right.
This keeps this line off of the ball. Does that make sense?
Right.
And then pulls the ball away from the upper shroud. Really locks it in there.
Got it.
Brand new force bar whisker pole system. Actually a pretty cool system. It's force bars whisker pole, but with the rigging companies set up on how that it's all to be rigged. It's got the Harkin cam cleats and blocks and Schaefer track. It's got all the best products coming together to make one awesome little system. If you do this right, you never have to actually bear the weight of the pole yourself. You have to, well, just do these couple of steps. So you got your pole topping lift right here, red line. If you look up, again, it gets its name because where it comes out of the mast. If you look up where it comes out of the mast, it's below the jib halyard, pretty high up. It's a little bit more modern than the old boats. They were pretty low, but it has a better angle. And also can be used as a potential future staysail stay should you ever rig something like that or another owner wants to rig it. This halyard is in the right position for that. Makes the rigger's life easier. Anyways, so you come over here. This will be out of the way of your sailing. Same thing here. You can take this right to the front of the mast, but I would take it around the shroud. It's not at risk of being furled ever, but this is probably a good place for it to live while sailing. You can flip it back to the storage bale and the pole here. That's a good place for it. Now, when you're actually ready to use it, you gotta make sure, always look up, that you're running clean to the top of the mast, and then you can flip it straight onto this little white nylon loop. It's called the lifting ring. Force Bar recently just came out with, they don't like you using the lifting ring, even though we've all been using it for years and it works just fine. The problem is the pole doesn't have great support, so if you're in a heavy sea state, heavy wind state, which you guys will see a little bit more of it up here than we do in the Chesapeake Bay, you need to rig this little pole bridle, which we're going to cover also. But I just want to go through the basics operations here. So take the pole, make sure it's clean to the top, just take the slack out of it. You don't need to make it super tight. You don't also want it to be super loose, but you know, just take it and take some slack out, clean it off. After you're done filming, I'm actually happy to do this so you get a feel for it. Most people do not use these poles. They install this $55,000 to $6,000 system on their boat, and they never use it because they never got this tutorial, and they're just like, it's too much for them. It's really pretty easy. So this little lanyard here, this little pull, trigger pull line, pulls the plunger open and releases the bottom of the pole. Notice in here, it keeps the pole open, and now this little trigger is revealed. Let's just show you how that works. That's for when you pop the sheet in from the jib sheet. Before we come up here, I didn't discuss, the headsail is furled away. Save yourself all the grief. Don't come up here with the thing trying to flog around, you know, because you're going downwind. So the headsail's out here, then it's out here, it's trying to dive back and forth. You don't need any of that, it makes it much calmer. Just furl the headsail away, you can run with the main for a minute. Everybody's fine. Things furled away. You can see our makeshift up there, which wrapped around a couple times. Furling line's cleated. Okay, so we hooked this up, took some slack out of it, cleated it, important, because that's what's going to hold the pole up. And then I released the jaw, I pulled this off of the storage. Okay, now the next step is I go here and I grab the control line. As I grab the control line, the pole shoots right out. For me to control the pole, I do it from right here. Now that the pole lift is cleated, right, it's just taking the pole and swinging it in and out like this, just by me controlling that inboard angle. So you don't need to go all the way out with it. Just go to about where it's about to hit the lifeline, probably about right there. Headsail's still furled away. It might swing over here depending on the waves. Now it's thrown around. It doesn't.
And it's
really
just
matter.
got a little cam cleat up there that holds it.
It's just a little cam cleat that holds it.
Okay.
Yep, but plenty strong.
Right.
This pole might swing around a little bit. Don't freak out. Even if it's laying over here against the shroud, it's not the end of the world. It can lay over here against the shroud. You'll see up there, I'm hitting some resistance there. There's a little rubber, like chalk, on that toggle car that it connects to, in where the pole attaches.
Yeah.
There's like a little rubber wedge that keeps it from hyperextending too far. So it's almost like providing a buffer for slamming against the wires. See what I'm saying?
Right.
That's just a little extra note, just so you can feel confident that it won't bang around and be too crazy. But anyway, so then I come up here and I grab the sheet, and now that trigger that I was pointing out to you earlier is in there. I take the sheet and I snap it in there like that.
All right.
And then I go back to the pole. Now the pole's going to stay more put because it's kind of on the static line on this end. And I come back to this pole and I continue to do my thing here. Now what's going to have to happen is I got to go to the back of the cockpit and ease the sheet out a little bit because it's keeping my pole from going out.
And as you do, obviously the sail's going to come out too.
Sail does not come out because the furling line is cleated.
Oh, okay, it's just the sheet. Yeah, you're right.
Furled away your sail, you're
All
still cleated, the sail stays furled.
Just need the slack on the sheet.
Just the old slack. Pole might run forward, might run straight out to the side, depends on the sea state. You want to get it to about horizontal.
Okay.
That's what you're looking for. Put it there. Don't forget to pull it and cleat it this way too.
Top and bottom.
Yep. Just so this is locked in there.
I take it it's supposed to have that much slack in the control line.
Yeah, it's so that I can, you know, a lot of people take my slack out every time. I'm like, why do you do that? Because now I can take it and pull it this way.
Right.
I can control each end individually.
And otherwise, without slack, you couldn't get loose. Yeah. Okay.
I'm always, you know, fighting the whole thing.
Right.
Plus, it has a lot of friction. So
Yeah.
it makes it so that you don't even need a cleat. It just is static there. You know?
Okay.
All right. So now the next move is, because it's a line control whisper pole. Whisper poles are telescoping.
There's no control on the telescope?
It's right here.
Okay.
If you want to dive underneath
Yeah.
here, you can see.
Ah, okay.
So after you get the pole horizontal, your sail's still furled away.
Right.
you set this pole out. Now you get to know over time how big your Genoa is. That's the telescoping magic.
Right.
So you want to set that to roughly, you know, the length of the foot, so that you can stretch the foot of the sail out. If you want a little bit more curve in the foot, you don't make the pole as long. If you want the foot to be flatter, you make the pole a little longer. You have the option of running a reef on the headsail while running wing to wing here.
Okay.
A lot of people, real quick before I go to telescoping, there's a lot of people want to rig downhauls and fore guys and after guys. It's unnecessary, because typically a whisker pole flies pretty much straight out from the beam, like right here. Okay. If you notice, the angle of the sheet is going down. So just my sheet tension will keep the pole from skying.
Right.
If the pole goes forward, you see that angle gets shallow of the sheet. Now I would need a downhaul, but you're not going to fly a whisker pole. Spinnaker pole, different discussion. Okay. But for the whisker pole, always wants to fly out here. All right, so now if you look right here, the line goes two ways. I can pull it out to whatever my desired length is.
So we can get it out there like that.
Yep. And then I cleat it, and this is where it's important. I cleat against this so it can't suck it back in there. When I pull it away the other way, we're going to cleat it the other way. And there should be just enough line slack for me to
just to keep it from flying around.
Now that tension right there from here to the cleat is what's holding it out. So it'll try to compress in, this line will get tighter. Perfect.
Okay.
What a lot of people forget is that sometimes they cleat it this way, pulling
backwards,
this way,
and it's not doing anything.
which I want to do when I'm storing it. But for right now,
okay,
we're trying to extend it. We want it to stay extended, so it needs to go this way.
Okay.
The final step, because the sail was still furled away this entire time, is that you go to the back of the cockpit, uncleat the furling line now, go ahead and unfurl the sail out to the end of the pole.
And then you're sailing.
As much or as little as you want. So you unfurl it until the boat's cooking along at speed, and you're like, oh, that's enough for me. It doesn't have to reach the end of the pole. You know, whatever it wants to be, and then cleat the furling line again so it doesn't come involuntarily unfurled on you. And then that's what you're sailing down with. And it's actually a very comfortable way to sail. Like, you just kind of have that thing braced out to weather. This guy's sitting to leeward. You could rig a boom preventer on this, wouldn't hurt you. Boat's not set up for it yet, but it's also another accoutrement that you can come up with later to add. So then you lock the boom out to leeward, brace the pole out to weather, and, you know, kind of just relax. You can go for days just downwind.